Sally Rooney's Normal People is anything but. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Harry's Book Cafe. Today we're going to talk about Sally Rooney's Normal People. That novel was published quite a few years back. Prior to the publication of Normal People, Sally Rooney was a relatively unknown author, but since the publication of that, she became an overnight success almost. That book single-handedly propelled her to the literary stardom. And it has accumulated over the years many critical acclaims. In fact, I like to listen to book review podcast, and is especially for the last couple of months or last 5 or 6 months, it is very difficult to actually finish listening a podcast without the reviewer mentioning Sally Rooney's Normal People. So it has a huge impact on the literary world, incredibly so. So I always wanted to read it. Well, in fact, that's not quite true. I never had much interest when it was first came out, but because by the process of osmosis of all these positive reviews, all this talk about the book in the podcasts, I decided to check it out for myself. So I managed to grab a copy from a library, and I have just finished reading it. Very difficult story to actually sum up. So I try the best I can. It's the reason that I said difficult is because not much has happened in the story. It's very sort of a slow burn of a story. So it's centered on two protagonists, Carnel and Marianne. Both of them live in this fictionalized town in West Ireland called Characters. Carnel is incredibly popular, very clever, intellectual, very handsome. So in school he has many friends. Marianne is the opposite. She was also very brilliant intellectually. However, she doesn't really crave companies, so not many people like her, and she became ostracized by her classmates, an outcast, essentially. So Carnel occupies a rather lower rank of the economic situation. His family is certainly not wealthy. It's very sort of low-level income. Marianne, on the other hand, her family is incredibly wealthy. She lives in this huge mansion, the biggest property in this place. Now, Carnel's mum actually works as a cleaner for Marianne's family. Now, that's the difference. There are similarities intellectually, both, but socially, Carnel is much more popular than the Marianne. Economically, Marianne is significantly more wealthy than Carnel. Nobody likes Marianne, as I've mentioned before. She's a social outcast, ostracized by her peers, with the exception of Carnel. Now, Carnel really likes her, and finally they entered into a relationship. Now, because Carnel is very popular, he is reluctant to make that relationship public, therefore nobody knows. Then the story moves on, and over the years, they are both, as I said, intellectually brilliant, and they end up in the same college, in Trinity College in Dublin, where the social role sort of reversed. Carnel finds himself all of his league in terms of economic situations, where all his classmates are very well off, and he was no longer popular because he finds that he doesn't have as much common ground with his peers, whereas Marianne, as I mentioned, her background finds Trinity College right at home, so she has a lot more friends than Carnel did. Their relationship, by the way, did not last, so they broke up before they came here, and they got back together again. So in fact, the theme of the book is those two people's on and off relationship, and that's where the book gets a little bit frustrating. I'll come back to that. Before I do so, I will try to analyze why people like this book so much. I'm the exception, which I'll elaborate a little bit later. The book is very easy read, and it somehow grabs you through, even though you might not like the character very much, but you still find this almost like a magical power to really put you in. I can't articulate it very well because I didn't like the book very much at all, but I still find it difficult to put down. I don't know what Sally Rooney did, but it's an incredible, talented writer to actually produce something like that. Now, this is actually the second time I recorded this video. And the first time after recording it, I watched the video myself and I realized I was very negative. I was quite angry. So second attempt, I tried to be a little bit more neutral. I had time to think about the story, so I'll come back with a clearer head. Now, the negative about the story, and the most, and I understand I'm in the minority, but please hear me out. I'm not trying to be a contrarian for the sake of being a contrarian. All my opinions, what I'm about to say is how I felt or how I'm feeling about this particular book. The most annoying thing, and perhaps is also the most superficial, is the omission of speech mark in the dialogues, which is bizarre. I can't see why she decided to leave out speech marks and just use a normal dialogue. You know, without a speech mark, I find it very difficult to actually digest the conversation. So that's more sort of superficial. The more fundamental problem with this book, in my opinion, is the characters. Now, Kang Niao and Marianne, both very aloof people, very indifferent to their situation. They're not very communicative at all, which contributed towards the numerous breakups, which I find quite annoying. And they remind me somehow, or a little bit, of Harashi Murakami's characters. But then again, we must take into account of the cultural difference. Japanese people or Asian people in general, or Orient people in general, tend to be a little bit more reserved. Here they are aloof for no reason whatsoever, and their lack of communication is really striking, and as I said before, contributed towards their numerous breakups. The characters are unlikable, certainly from my perspective, because of the above mentioned reasons. They don't like they love each other, but they somehow keep breaking up and ending up with people they dislike, which I find, again, very bizarre. If you don't like them, if you dislike them, why get together? And it seems to repeat this cycle again and again and again throughout the story, and it becomes rather repetitive. So that's the second part of what I didn't like very much about this book. The other thing is that Marianne, she experienced lots of domestic violence and violence against women from her perspective, and yet the writer did not elaborate very much in her writings. It almost as a sort of add-on just to make Marianne a little bit more mysterious, without really elaborate, without even sort of, I don't know, I can't really articulate. I just find that a little bit weird to actually leave those elaborations out. And perhaps the most exasperating aspect of this novel is the ending. It leaves lots of question marks. It wasn't really an ending at all. It just left a cliffhanger, and you expect to read the next chapter and realize, okay, that's actually the last page. So what do I think about the book? I did not like it at all. And as I mentioned before, this is going to be quite controversial. I find the characters not very easy to get along with. I don't really care about what happened to them. The storyline gets very repetitive halfway through the book. And the other thing I forgot to mention is that, especially in the first half of the book, there were lots of sexual scenes going on, and I'm not approved, but I find those scenes gratuitous. It once again reminds me of Harushi Murakami's book Norwegian Wood. There were also lots of that scenes, But then with Norwegian Wood, I found those scenes quite necessary to develop the story. Whereas here in Normal People, they serve next to no purpose, at least from my understanding. And I find those normal people are not normal at all. But that's my take on this book. I was thoroughly disappointed because I was hoping to enjoy a literary masterpiece. Like, there's so many positive reviews, and I don't understand what they see in this. If you have read it and you feel different to how I feel, please leave comments down below. And if you, by chance, feel the same way as I do, then you are more than welcome to leave more comments down below and let me know what our commonality is. But yes, that's the end of this episode, and I really do hope you liked it. Do buy this book and read it, because, as I said before, it is very well written from that perspective. You know, I didn't really enjoy the story, but yeah, read it by all means. It's a new channel, so please give us a help, give us a thumb up and subscribe. It really does a new channel like ours. Thank you very much. Until next time, cheerio.